This is how I would learn UX design if I could start over. I'm a full-time product designer. I've done agency, I've done freelance work. My route to breaking into tech is a little bit of a weird one. So in order to find out what I would have done differently, let's go back and find out how I got there in the first place. So I've been designing since I was 18 years old. Sort of. My parents have their own tattoo studio. They've been tattoo artists for decades, and I wanted to follow in the family footsteps and become a tattoo artist as well. This taught me the basic principles of design and communicating with a client on a vision, but ultimately I found out that I didn't really want to be doing that forever. Fast forward to university, I was doing a business degree, which taught me the foundations of general product design, market research, competitor analysis, product lifecycle, which in my day-to-day job is actually really helpful when talking about the bigger picture of tech products to companies that I'm working with. Fast forward again to now, and I'm currently working as a freelancer, working with big enterprise companies on their tech products. My work involves topics like competitor analysis, market research, user personas, success mapping, user testing, affinity mapping, Kano analysis, feature prioritization, and service blueprinting. And if you're looking to break into tech or learn UX design, you should definitely take note and go research some of those. And let me clear up the difference between UI and UX. UI design, so user interface design, is the very front-facing screen that you see when you open an app or a website, some sort of software, what the buttons look like, what is the pixel width between certain icons, color palette, even sometimes information architecture. UX design, user experience design, involves UI design towards the end. However, it encompasses quite a bit more in terms of the research, figuring out what features are needing to be included in the first place, creating the experience that the user is going to go through when using the software. You might think becoming a UX designer, the main thing to learn is visual design, but I'd actually argue that one of the most important things to learn is about psychology and user research. Empathy for what the user is going through, empathy for what the user needs in certain specific kinds of software. When it comes to user research, I think one of the best ways I can get across how important it is the way that a 90-year-old granny is going to use her banking app is completely different to how someone of my generation is going to use their banking app. User research needs to go in to discover how can you make a software usable for every kind of person that needs to use it. Doing research into the user gives your design purpose and lets you know who's going to be using it and in what context they're going to be using it. All other parts of UX design can be traced back to user research. So you think that I'm about to tell you that you should learn about user research, right? Not exactly. If you are just trying to break into UX design with no experience, who are you going to research with? What are you going to research? You don't usually have access to a user base to test with. In addition to that, you're just starting out. You want to play around with designs, you want that instant gratification, and that's okay. Doing a bunch of user research and all that kind of stuff is not going to give you the most bang for your buck at this stage in your learning process when you're just starting out. However, if hearing that makes you want to just jump straight into designing, hold up. Jumping straight into design without any sort of logic behind it or reasoning, it is going to result in a probably pretty but useless design. UX design with no logic or no ground, no basis, is useless. That kind of defeats the purpose of UX design in the first place. I would really recommend going to the Laws of UX website and doing a little bit of research there first about the different kinds of principles and laws that we apply to our designs. For instance, the aesthetic usability effect, where users perceive designs that are more aesthetically pleasing as more useful and functional, or Hick's law, showing that the time that it takes to make a decision on screen increases with the number and the complexity of choices presented to the user. Also look at the M3 website. They go into detail about certain kinds of components. The material design content and the laws of UX come up all the time in my job. I'm always referencing them. So once you've got familiar with design, you can start to think about applying these ideas to breaking into the industry via course, a boot camp, volunteering, an internship. A lot of people are learning, studying, and changing their career path, and CourseCareer is changing the way that people start their careers without degrees. Many of their graduates don't have previous experience or a degree and are using their course as well as their own skills and talents to get ahead in the job market and break into that new industry. I don't have a degree, anything to do with tech yet. Here I am, years into my dream career. So if I can do it, you can do it. CourseCareer helps people like you start at entry-level position without that prior experience. You get a free introduction to the course, teaching you about the career and what kind of people are suited to it. And then in the paid course, they teach all the skills and knowledge that you need to be able to build your portfolio and land your first role. As you're learning, there's going to be some ups and some downs. You're going to be discouraged, demotivated, and you're going to find that passion again. Just keep pushing through because it's a skill that you can learn like any other. If you're wanting to make a career change, it's going to be a bit awkward at first. You're learning a new thing, and that's part of the joy of learning something new is feeling like a complete noob. Embrace the first days and the first stages of learning something new because you only get to experience that once. In addition to skill building and portfolio building, CourseCareers also helped you to network and make those connections that you need to break into the industry. They help you to format your CV, your LinkedIn, how to find jobs, what to do in an interview, and when you finish, you get a certificate of completion, as well as a shareable website portfolio of your work. You'll also be added to an employer platform where employers and hiring managers can find you, request interviews, and you can secure a job without actually having to directly apply to companies. CourseCareer has a free introductory course. Click the link in my description to sign up and find out exactly how you can start your UX design career with no degree and no experience. In order to begin actually designing, you're going to need a desktop or a laptop and learn a design platform. There are so many tutorials online. You've got Figma tutorials, Sketch tutorials, Adobe XD tutorials. All of these kinds of platforms are what UX designers use in order to create their designs. They all function a little bit differently, so you can try them out and see what one you like working with best. Specifically, Figma is starting to become more industry standard. You see a lot of the job listings that are posted nowadays require you to be able to use Figma. It's hard to exchange information and designs if you're all working across different platforms. If the job listing says we use Figma, then that's the one that you should be proficient in. I love Figma. I'm a Figma girly. Look up a couple tutorials, and as you go through, you'll learn about things like frames, wireframes, prototyping. Once you have the basics down of how to use your platform, I want you to take a screenshot of an app in your phone, paste it into Figma or Sketch or Adobe XD, whichever one you choose, and make a one-to-one copy of it. Just trace it, and as you're tracing it, you'll learn how it was put together and what goes into the design in the first place. Once you have the basics of how to use the platforms and the basics of design down, you're ready to start designing your own portfolio piece. I'll tell you a little bit about my first portfolio piece in a little bit, but my advice would be to start with an app that already exists on the App Store and look to make some improvements on it based on the reviews that you can see down below. Take a note of what the most common theme that comes up in the reviews is. What is the most consistent thing that people are complaining about or that they wish the app had? Compile them into some solutions and a feature list. Have a stab at making a redesigned version. For me, one of my first portfolio pieces ever was redesigning the Steam app. If you have ever used the Steam app, you know how dated it is. It's pretty much just the website squeezed onto a phone screen. I did the same process. I went on the App Store, took some screenshots, looked at the reviews, found the pain points that people were talking about, and tried to redesign around that. So as I was studying and building up my knowledge, I used the reviews on the Steam App Store to redesign something and add that to my CV. While you're doing your redesign, you're going to naturally learn about topics like information architecture and a bit about wireframing, a bit more about prototyping, and a little bit of that user research comes up there when you're taking those reviews, implementing that into features and a redesign. If you want to try something a little bit more unique or close to home, personal, you can try to come up with a design idea around something that already frustrates you in day-to-day life. So, you know, when you're going to the grocery store and you forget if you already have soy sauce, you could create an app design that allows you to keep track of your groceries or something. That's something that I tried out when I was first beginning. It looks terrible, but it's just a learning process. Or just think about an app that you already use that you wish had a certain feature just to make life easier. Those little hints of frustration are exactly the things that you should be looking out for. They're like little pearls of inspiration that you can turn into a portfolio piece. When you're designing, steal things, steal ideas, steal concepts, get inspired by everything you possibly can. Don't steal one-to-one. Come on, let's be smart about it. You need to start learning from people who are already good at what they do. Absorb all that information. You need to be a sponge. And again, for just portfolio pieces, there's no point reinventing like what's already there. Figma community has an amazing resource of like icons, vectorized shapes and stuff. Flat icon has so many cool PNG icons, as well as Pexels has great stock photos that you can just drag and drop into your design. There's no point sitting there trying to design your own iconography or take your own pictures for your designs. Take that from the resources that people are sharing online and learn from your fellow designer. You're ready to start building a network. There are a couple things that I wish I knew when I started doing this as someone with little to no experience. For starters, I wish I just understood how much asking for help can get you further. You don't have to pretend you know everything because let's be honest, you don't. You don't know everything. And acting like you do will only make people think that you're up yourself. It's better to just be honest. You're never gonna know as much as a UX designer who's been doing this 10 years. Just ask for help. Ask for advice. Reach out to some people on LinkedIn and ask if they'd be kind enough to review your portfolio and give some advice and feedback. Try to build that relationship with multiple designers on LinkedIn in sort of industries and companies that you're interested in working in, and eventually they're going to see you grow as a designer from your posts or your messages. They'll see your progress and they will keep you in mind for future positions. And when you are applying, always reach out to a designer on the team of the company you applied to and ask them, hey, what does the team look like here? What's the design team like? Do you like working here? Do you have any tips for the hiring process? I've done that so many times. I've messaged people on LinkedIn asking for help on the hiring process or tips for the hiring process, and a lot of the time they're really willing and open to give me some hints, either of what the questions are going to be or at least what I should prepare for the interview. Throughout the stages of learning how to design, the theory, the practice, applying to jobs, getting knocked back from jobs, you're going to feel discouraged or demotivated, and that's okay. That's normal, it's natural, but just keep pushing through. This is a skill like any other. You can relearn and change your career path at any stage in your life, no matter your age, no matter your experience. You've got this. I've known people who have broke into UX and tech from all different kinds of backgrounds, from like finance, people who studied law, people who studied psychology, people who just did art. There's so many avenues. Also, definitely look into your local area to see if there's any career building days, UX design functions, events, all that kind of stuff. It helps you build those connections and see what opportunities are out there that you didn't even know there were. Subscribe, comment, like, and I'll see you in the next video.